Hi, I'm Joan Lawrence. I was the administrator at St. Matthew's from 2010 to 2019, and welcome to my garden. So we'll start over here with this bed is the semi-shade and shade garden. But actually these roses, which I bought at the grocery store, do very well in pots in semi-shade. And this leaf here is from a calla lily, and I just love the leaf. In fact, most of the plants here, I love them because of the leaf shape or the leaf color. It's very important for me to have a plant that looks good even when it's not in bloom. And let's face it, most perennials in Ottawa don't bloom for very long. Let me introduce you to my garden guardian angel. Isn't she a beauty? She oversees everything that goes on here. So over here we have brunellas, we have coral bells, a little bit of broken pottery, some daylilies coming in, some daisies just about finished, the Acamila mollis, which every garden needs. If you have a little bit of shade and you can keep it moist, that's an excellent plant to have. We have more coral bells over here, and now we're getting into a little bit deeper shade where the hostas are happy. And so I have a variety of hosta colors, hosta shapes. I just love all the different tones that you can get here. And this is one of my favorites, this beautiful lime green hosta. This is a ligularia, which I've had for about 10 years. It's been in every part of the garden. About 5 years ago, I put it there, and it is a happy camper. I'm never going to move it again. So we'll go back now towards the other part of the garden. And the other part of the garden is very different. It's on a hill, and about 7 years ago, we put this wall in, and what a difference it's made to the garden. It now has definition, it has various heights. This is on a hill. It was very difficult to keep that hill in place. Plants were constantly falling down. So that was a good investment on our part, and certainly makes it much easier. This whole bed here is in transition. I've got some drought-loving plants going on here. I used to have lavender in here, but it's a big plant. It takes over eventually. Another thing that I believe about gardens, if you have a plant that you're not happy with, or it's not happy in your garden, after 2 years, take it out, give it to a friend of yours. Now, one of my favorite plants here is this barberry. It's about 5 years old, and it was purchased to go along, or to complement, the Japanese maple on the upper level. I like the look, and I think it's important to try to complement your flowers just a little bit. So the lavender is almost finished, and then the Stella d'Oro was in bloom with the lavender. I love that look. And here we have some rosemary and basil and parsley in pots. I water them 2 or 3 times a day, depending on how hot it is. Daylilies. Now this plant here, I call it pom-pom or popsicle. I just don't know what it is, but it's certainly a very good plant to have in your garden. It's hardy. I divide it all the time. If you'd like some, please let me know. This is another barberry, the lime color, almost the same color as the hosta that I showed you before. So lots of things blooming here, a lot of new plants, and usually within 2 or 3 years they fill in, they look good, if they're going to be happy in this place. This is a new plant for me. It is a sea lavender. It's going to bloom, and I'm looking forward to that. My favorite plant in the whole garden is this euonymus. It was put in 1995. I've never moved it. It is the first plant I see in the spring when the snow melts, and when I see it, I just get very itchy feet to come out here and start gardening again. And up here we try to have some clematis. I don't do very well with clematis, but every now and then they bloom. And look at this, this bloom today, the balloon flower. Isn't that just the most beautiful color? So let's go back again, and I'll show you the top garden. And so lots of trees, the yews are about 25 years old. And this is quite shaded up here, hence the hostas there. So it's a lovely contrast to the much more sunny garden below. And coming over here, this is a disaster this year with the garden, but I'm going to try and fix that. Again, I lost some clematis. Now, here is my astilbe bed, and this is the entrance to the garden from the road. So it's a lovely way to come into the garden. And I've had these for years and years. They're a very faithful plant. They do what they're told. They never outgrow their space. I divide them every 2 or 3 years, and they're happy campers. So I hope you've enjoyed the tour of the garden, and santé.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Mary Glen, and I'm a parishioner at St. Matthew's, and I am delighted to be in my garden and making a contribution to this Covid-Artz project, the brainchild of our excellent music director and organist, Kirk Gadsett. And what I love about the arts is, well, I love many things about it, but my real love is poetry. And I expect many of you do too. So today, in my contribution, I want to read 3 short poems and a closing verse. But first, some context. As you know, the COVID pandemic has brought many things to light about the way we live our lives, for the good and for the not so good. The very big conversation about racism, essentially the way we see, hear, and behave towards our fellow people, has spurred us as Christians who are building up God's church to look at ourselves, always a good thing. And we're talking, spurred by Becky McCoy's fresh initiative to discuss the ideas in a book called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And a stimulating discussion is bubbling up, one I think you'll be interested in too. And I think there are 3 questions that come out of it. 1, are we an anti-racist or a racist parish? 2, how do we know? And 3, how do others see us? Questions worth pondering. So, the first poem I'm going to read to you is by an American scholar, writer, and young black man. It's called Bullet Points. I will not shoot myself in the head, and I will not shoot myself in the back, and I will not hang myself with a trash bag. And if I do, I promise you, I will not do it in a police car while handcuffed, or in the jail cell of a town I only know the name of because I have to drive through it to get home. Yes, I may be at risk, but I promise you, I trust the maggots who live beneath the floorboards of my house to do what they must to any carcass, more than I trust an officer of the law of the land to shut my eyes like a man of God might, or to cover me with a sheet so clean my mother could have used it to tuck me in. When I kill me, I will do it the same way most Americans do, I promise you. Cigarette smoke, or a piece of meat on which I choke, or so broke I freeze in one of these winters we keep calling worst. I promise if you hear of me dead anywhere near a cop, then that cop killed me. He took me from us and left my body, which is, no matter what we've been taught, greater than the settlement a city can pay a mother to stop crying, and more beautiful than a new bullet fished from the folds of my brain. Bullet points. Gwen Benaway is a trans girl of Anishinaabe and Métis descent, and she's a published poet in Canada. Her poem is called Trillium. The animal in me is constant. Thirst starts, hunger answers, sleep is uncertain, restless limbs. In the night, I hear footsteps. Warnings appear. All signs say death. Still, I crave cigarettes and coffee. Exhaustion brings repetition, life cycles. Cold follows me. Something waits. Telegraphs move faster than my heart. I stay primitive, gestate in trilliums. When the hunter finds me separate, I turn toward the blow, bleat into sacrifice. Domesticated prey, still wild enough to leap against my instinct, find my predatory drive, and tear the throat out of that which chases me. Trillium. The last poem is by a much-loved American poet called Maya Angelou, who was a real activist in the anti-black, in the anti-racist movement. It's called When I Think About Myself. When I think about myself, I almost laugh myself to death. My life has been one great big joke, a dance that's walked, a song that spoke. I laugh so hard I almost choke when I think about myself. 60 years in these folks' world, the child I works for calls me girl. I say, yes ma'am, for working's sake. Too proud to bend, too poor to break. I laugh until my stomach ache when I think about myself. My folks can make me split my side. I laughed so hard I nearly died. The tales they tell sound just like lying. They grow the fruit, but eat the rind. I laugh until I start to crying when I think about my folks. So poems give us much to think about. And Reverend Jeff recently encapsulated the simplicity of our essential learning as Christians. And that is that God is love. So for now, here's a parting verse for Ms. Angelou, from Ms. Angelou's poem called Touched by an Angel. We are weaned from our timidity. In the flush of love's light, we dare be brave. And suddenly we see that love costs all we are and will ever be. Yet it is only love which sets us free. So let's ponder and act together and read poetry. Lots of it. Thank you.
Hi there, Chris Goddard here, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Florida, not the ideal place to be these days, but we're doing just fine down here, and certainly wishing all the best of health to our friends and family back home in Ottawa. I spent most of my life with some proximity to St. Matthew's. I was in the boys choir for many years, formative years, and also many years in the men's choir, and then for several years after that I would substitute on the organ when I was home for holidays and things like that. And actually the last time I was in the church was September 2018, getting married. So certainly a long and positive and rich history with St. Matthew's. So after this video, you're going to hear a little piece of music that I wrote. I filmed it last night at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church here in Gainesville, where I work as an assisting organist. It's a piece that I wrote actually originally 5 years ago, and it was at the request of my uncle, whose daughter, my cousin, was getting married, and I was playing for the service, and he asked me to write a little piece for organ that could be played while the registry was being signed. And he asked specifically for me to include themes by Mary Poppins, or from the Mary Poppins soundtrack. So you'll hear a number of tunes from that, and I hope Hope it brightens your day and gives you something to enjoy as we all get through this. So please enjoy the Mary Poppins fantasy.